1 year ago tonight, the sky over Kansas unleashed its fury, changing thousands of lives forever.
I had never seen a tornado, but all the pictures are a funnel, you know. Well, this was just a big black wall over there.
I don't know how we'll ever get that cleaned up.
I'm sure this spring, if there's a lot of storms, we're going to be watching.
Tonight, we'll look at how those Kansans are rebuilding their lives, hopes, and dreams in a KAKE News special report, 2 hours of terror, 1 year later.
Welcome back to Hesston, Kansas. It happened at exactly 5:37 p.m. It came from that direction over there. It just barely missed the Hesston water tower, took out a number of homes and businesses on that end of town, and then just kept coming this way, right through that schoolyard, right through the park we're standing in, and then it headed off to the northeast, taking out more homes and businesses as it left town. March 13th, 1990, 2 hours of terror. Here in Hesston alone, $22 million in damage. 16 people injured, 300 more left homeless. One of those was Arlen Yoder.
It's hard to explain how you feel in a situation like that. And, it was the unknowns were so great, but I think the house was probably such a shock because I didn't even think about it, but the house might be damaged. I was just concerned about the family.
Imagine coming home only to find out you no longer have one. Arlen Yoder works in Wichita, so until he arrived back home in Hesston 1 year ago tonight, he had no idea that his wife and 3 children had survived huddled in the basement, but that the basement was all that was left of their 5-month-old home.
No roof. The roof and all of the ceilings were gone and wires were hanging down. Insulation everywhere. I guess a feeling that everything we had was gone or damaged.
But now Arlen Yoder comes home to a house that's new yet familiar, built from the same plans on the same foundation as the old one, as a very long year comes to a close.
Right after the tornado, those were the feelings that were hard, was feeling that there really was no place that was your own or that you could go, I guess, a refuge for, as a family. You didn't have that place you could call home.
That is great. That is great.
Home and family, the ties that bind even stronger now, having weathered the storm.
I remember the day when the house was already framed up but didn't have a roof on it yet, and it was raining, and I was in the basement trying to salvage a few things down there, and the water was running in on me, and that I think that hit me as a time when I realized I didn't have a house. It started feeling normal after we moved back in, and part of that was having, I think, the same floor plan and the same house, but it really felt a lot like it did before, as far as walking through it. Obviously, there was a lot of things to do yet when we moved in, and seeing those undone was reminders that it wasn't quite as we had left it.
In Hesston, Mother Nature had her day, but the rest of the past year has belonged to the power of the human spirit, and the future looks even brighter thanks to some lessons from the past.
We probably learned how to accept help in caring from other people. Following the night of the tornado, probably felt more of a closeness or a need for each other, or more of a recognition of how important we all were to each other. When the storm sirens went off last summer, we huddled very closely as a family, and I'm sure that will happen more so this year than it would have in the past.
Many Hesston residents not only lost their homes during those 2 hours of terror, they lost their businesses as well. 10 businesses in Hesston's small downtown area were completely destroyed by the tornado. 11 others were damaged. Senior reporter Mike Taylor spent the day after the storm with many of those business owners, and he recently returned here to Hesston to see how they're doing 1 year later.
10 businesses in Hesston's small downtown were destroyed by the tornado. This was the hair design shop. The walls cracked, the wood frame twisted out of shape, but owners Sylvia Smith and Brenda Buller were determined to rebuild.
We've been meeting a lot of people on the street wanting to know when they can get their hair cut. So we'll be back in business.
I don't know when, but...
This is all that's now left of the building. A concrete slab with some of the linoleum floor tiles still down. It's being used as a parking lot. The rebuilding effort has at times seemed slow, but it's an effort that has been steady and consistent throughout the year.
I had an adopted grandma when I was little.
The hair design shop is back in business in a brand new building next door to the old shop. But it wasn't easy for Smith and Buller.
You know, you think, I have to work, the bills are still coming in, you know, even if a tornado did hit us. But yeah, it was kind of panicky for a while. On our days off, all we did was run around, talk to insurance companies, go shopping, looking for things, looking for carpeting. And
after the storm, they rented space in 2 other Hesston beauty shops before finally setting up a temporary salon in a small duplex. They finally moved into the new building last fall, 6 full months after the tornado hit. Croft Lumber is also headquartered in a new building these days.
Let's just move them around. Let's pull this to the side this way a little bit.
The lumberyard was also hard hit by the storm, but still managed to play an important role in Hesston's rebuilding effort. Croft employees delayed cleaning up the damage for several weeks so they could help everyone else in town get started salvaging their homes and businesses.
And it is stressful. It really is. But every day gets a little better. With all the help and things that we've had, why, every day gets better. It's going to work out for the good.
The Pizza Hut and a nearby truck stop were also hard hit. Several people huddled for cover as the roofs were ripped right off the buildings. Within weeks, the Pizza Hut was back in business. It, too, now stands in a brand new building.
forget.
But a few blocks away, customers at the hair design shop can still see signs of the tornado's destructive path.
Yeah, we stand here and we open our drapes and we look out, we always see is where the tornado had been, you know.
Still, the signs of progress and the signs of recovery in Hesston are evident. Mike Taylor, KAKE News.
And those stories of determination really aren't all that unique. In fact, most business owners decided to stay right here in Hesston and rebuild their shops, stores, and offices. The tornado certainly took its toll physically on the people in its path, but it left its mark emotionally as well. And to this day, some of those scars still haven't healed. When we come back, we'll take you to Burton, where the memory of a young tornado victim lives on.
So after, the tornado, then I called everybody's name. I called Mr. and Mrs. Weedle. I called Garrett and Brandon. They all answered. And I called Lucas, and he didn't answer. And I called Lucas, and still no answer. And
most of us still refer to it as the Hesston tornado because that's where most of the damage was in terms of homes and buildings, dollars and cents. But the tornado also took away something priceless, 2 lives, including that of 6-year-old Lucas Fisher from here in Burton. KAKE's Phil LeBeau takes us back to the Fisher home, where the family is still rebuilding, both physically and emotionally.
When it's cloudy and muggy, like it was this morning, they think about it.
Generally, the healing process has taken place for most students, and therefore it will not be a reversal.
Burton second graders go through their school day like any other students. But they remember last year's tornado killed one of their classmates.
Like even this morning, it came up in our opening exercises this morning that they said, it kind of seems like tornado weather.
Their friend Lucas Fisher died in the tornado. Second graders learned the lessons of life and death earlier than most.
If it is more than one, what are you going to do? You know, we talk about it, but it's mostly the memories of Lucas that we talk about. You know, that's the neat thing about kids. They're real flexible, and they take time, you know, to talk about what has happened, but then they forget about it again, and their lives pretty well go on.
Their memories are sharp, and Mrs. Kaufman knows students will ask many questions on the year anniversary of the tornado.
When they first come in the door, they very well could tell me, you know, it was a year ago today that we had the big tornado.
But for those who were extremely close, we will need to be sensitive to their feelings during the springtime.
Drive 2 miles south of the school, and you can still see the tornado's destruction.
You can tell from the trees across the road, you know, it went to there, over to here, you know, and here our house was right in the middle.
Lucas Fisher's home is still being rebuilt, but his mother remembers last year very clearly.
Lucas said, well, Mama, what's going to happen? And I said, well, you know, if the tornado hits us, you know, it'll just take the roof off. I remember hearing the cement grinding, you know, and then the fireplace fell in. And then it was just real quiet.
In the stillness of her basement, Dixie Fisher found her son crushed under chimney bricks.
Finally pulled out enough bricks, and I found this little leg on one side, and then I'd go around to the other, and I couldn't pull him out. I'd go around the other side, move some bricks, and it was a little arm, you know, but I just couldn't pull him out. There was too much on top of him.
Today, Lucas's picture sits above the family's new fireplace. His mother put other pictures of him in a photo album.
You know, I didn't have him, and so I just made more pictures of him. When he was 10 days old, he got real sick, and he was in the hospital then. So we're thankful for that, you know, we did have him for 6 years, and he could have taken him when he was just a little baby.
The natural beauty outside the Fisher home now blends with the tornado's destruction. Huge trees that once shaded the pond now lie in it.
You know, you clean up, and it seems like there's always more to do. You know, all the junk out of the yard and just getting everything picked up.
Life has returned to a home torn by death, and the Fishers are coping with the emotional and physical scars it left.
You know, I've tried to just handle it the way I could and do what I thought I had to do to help myself through it.
The Fishers have set up a scholarship fund in their son's name. The money will be given out to members of Lucas's high school graduating class in the year 2001. The tornado's other victim was 68-year-old Ruth Voth from near Gossel. The Voth home did not have a basement, and neighbors believe she was trying to find shelter in a ditch only about 30 yards from her home.
Well, you really realize that things here are just temporary, and that, you know, you can put all your money and your time and your effort into making things nice for yourself, and in a split second that can be gone. And just makes you really think, what's it all about?
Most tornadoes only stay on the ground for about 10 minutes, but the March 13th twister was on the ground for nearly 2.5 hours, cutting a path of destruction from 100 to 200 yards wide. This is a hedgerow near Gossel. You can see how wide the path was, and even a year later, pieces of debris are still scattered everywhere. KAKE's Jan Gardner and Dennis Decker recently visited a farm near here. They found some surprising changes, not only in the farm, but in the people who live there as well.
The day after the tornado struck, Iris Lane Dairy Farm lay in ruins. The Schmidts were barely out of their basement before a crowd of people arrived to help.
Neighbors watched it happen and came right out.
The losses are devastating. Several tin barns and a silo are destroyed. 3 cows died and many more are injured. The house was heavily damaged. Today, the Schmidts farm is comparatively bare. Gone are the wrecked barns. Perhaps a dozen old elm trees have been cut down or cut back. Even now, there is still work to be done, decisions to make.
Oh, yes, all the time. And it's always a matter of deciding what to do with this because of what's left. You know what I mean? Whether I just take it all out or try to rebuild it. And so some things I've decided to rebuild, and some things you decide it's too far gone.
There is a lot that is gone, but you don't fully comprehend it until you see what the farm was like before the tornado hit.
This building is gone. This garage is gone. There's a grain bin here that's gone. These trees they were all gone. This feed room is gone. This silo is gone. This is my main freestall barn and cattle handling facility. That was all gone.
Buildings can be replaced, but the trees and quiet moments relaxing in the shade are gone.
Just a week ago, I was feeling a little depressed because I came home and all of a sudden I realized that the trees were like they had been a year ago and with no leaves and such. They looked better last summer when the leaves covered, but so that'll take a number of years.
There have been low moments over the past year, but they don't last long. Like on that first day after, friends have been there to lift them up.
But even it was the first part of December when I was rebuilding this one shed. I was real discouraged because I wanted to do that minor change and realized I'd have to knock out a bunch of concrete. And we called a couple of neighbors, and they came out right away and helped me make that decision. And we got going on it.
He was, we just couldn't believe that they just came right. Well, we could believe it because that's what they've been doing for us.
Right next door to the Schmitz farm is a constant reminder of the tornado. The old farmhouse that once stood here was so severely damaged, the owner burned it to the ground. It's scars like this that remind the Schmitz not only of what did happen, but what didn't happen to them. They lost their dairy business, but they still have their children, Carrie and Ben, their home, and their friends.
Well, you really realize that things here are just temporary and that, you know, you can put all your money and your time and your effort into making things nice for yourself, and in a split second that can be gone. And just makes you really think, what's it all about?
Once one of the highest producers of grade A milk in the state, the Schmitz have sold their milking equipment. Now they just raise dairy heifers for other farms. It was a tough decision for Jim, a third-generation award-winning dairyman. It has been a year of loss, physical labor, and mental anguish, but along with that has come a revelation.
What we've realized out of this is the most important things is the human relationships that you make in your life. It's not what you acquire, but it's the people, the relationships you make, the kind of person you are.
They say it's the most significant change in their lives, their feelings about mankind. Near Gossel, Jan Gardner, KAKE News.
The tornado forced everyone in its path to start their lives over again. Some of the things lost in the storm can never be replaced. Up next on 2 Hours of Terror, 1 year later, we'll take you back to Haven, where more signs of the storm still linger.
Well, you never get it back the way it was because you just don't have the same type of things to put back, so you have to get new things and new memories because those are gone. And, you know, you can never get them back.
As we've seen, it has taken many families a full year to rebuild their homes, their dreams, their lives. Before the deadly tornado tore through Hesston, it passed here, the small Reno County town of Haven, leaving many people homeless here as well. A year ago, KAKE's Brenda Stewart showed us what the storm did to the Brower family. Today, she says they are still picking up the pieces.
Just a few finishing touches, and the Brower's house will be finished. Like most of the materials on the inside, the air conditioner is brand new. It was impossible to repair the old one.
Well, that end of the house tore off, and to this day, nobody's ever have seen that compressor unit. The whole big air conditioning is gone. It just vanished.
So did a lot of the Brower's other belongings. Whatever last year's tornado didn't destroy, the rain finished off. The family wrote off the furniture in good crystal and did their best to save a few personal mementos.
They're either things that are wedding gifts or things people gave you or things maybe you bought on a trip or something special.
Now, when Tony Brower looks at the rubble that was once his home, he's amazed at how quickly it was all destroyed and how long it took to rebuild.
It's almost more agony than was a tornado, because the tornado just took a little while. And yet building back the home and trying to, so you can get back in it, took, a period of 6-7 months.
The Browers have managed to rebuild and move back in, but it's still going to take a while for them to turn this house into a home.
The walls are now bare where family pictures used to hang, and most of the baseball cards that used to take up room in Clinton Brower's closet are now history. He savors the few he has left.
Well, I mean, that's the stuff you work on. The other stuff, you just go out and you buy it. It doesn't really mean that much to you. You just use it or whatever you bought it for. But the other stuff, it's what you worked for and worked on, collecting and things.
His mother knows exactly how he feels. Although the tornado demolished her old china cabinet, most of the stuff inside survived. It's a shame she can't say that for the rest of her belongings.
Oh, yeah, when I go outside and look at my yard, it's, there's hours and hours of work out there. We need to rebuild a deck, we need to build a building, we need to redo our whole yard. So this is just part of it. We have a whole spring and summer of work to get back to where we were before.
In the meantime, the Browers are watching the skies overhead closely, listening for the sirens and hoping tornadoes are a little like lightning, never striking twice in the same place. In Haven, Brenda Stewart, KAKE News.
The Browers had built their original house 22 years ago and had just paid it off before the tornado forced them to start all over again. Now, none of us wants to experience a tornado of that magnitude ever again, but unfortunately it could happen. Forecasters say this could be another year of deadly storms and tornadoes in Kansas. Coming up next, meteorologists Jim O'Donnell and Dave Schaefer will join us in the KAKE studios. They'll explain the phenomenon of tornadoes, why this year could be just as bad as last year, and they'll answer your questions about tornadoes and storms. So call them now at 943-0228, and we'll be right back.
After 2 hours of terror 1 year later, I'm Jim O'Donnell.
And I'm Dave Schaefer. In the next half hour, we'll look at the weather factors that caused the tornado outbreak of 1 year ago and take a look at what we can expect this severe weather season.
We'll also be taking your calls to answer your weather questions. That's coming up in just a few minutes. In the meantime, though, we're going to be, let's go back, rather, to March 13th, 1990, to look at why the Hesston tornado formed.
The Hesston tornado actually had its beginning the previous night as strong south winds brought moist air north from the Gulf of Mexico. By late morning, a deep layer covered central and eastern Kansas. Not long after that, dry air pushed into the west. The boundary this created was the dangerous dry line, often a trigger for our severe weather. Dry lines get even more dangerous with high winds, and on the 13th, winds in the dry air were gusting to 55 miles per hour, the strongest dry punch in years, and nothing happened. That's because the clouds kept the temperature down, something that can bring an otherwise nasty tornado day to a screeching halt. If the clouds had held, they would have stopped the Hesston tornado before it ever started. But the clouds didn't hold. The sun came out, and the dry line began its deadly work.
As you've seen and heard, it was certainly a deadly storm.
While we've been talking mainly about the Hesston area tonight, the storm had its beginnings many miles away. From this modest beginning near Medicine Lodge came the greatest tornadic storm in Kansas history. This was the start of what we now call 2 hours of terror. North of Kingman, the storm turns severe, and these ominous gray-green pockets start to spin. A tornado watch goes into effect. At KAKE TV, Jim O'Donnell issues a Doppler alert. Tornado warnings followed right behind as the first tornado touches down in Reno County and grows to almost a mile across at the base. The storm claims its first victim near Burton. Big and fast, this is the worst type of tornado, covering a lot of ground in a short time. There aren't many like this, but they do most of the damage and most of the killing. As the monster tears into Hesston, residents hide in basements, bathrooms, and food lockers. From this terrible scene emerges an amazing fact. Everyone in Hesston survives.
Send it out of here, God! Send it out of here!
For Hesston, the terror does stop, but for others, it's just beginning, and the terror is still growing. As the Hesston tornado on the left weakens, a brand new tornado strengthens to the right. Inexorably, life comes to an end for the emaciated Hesston tornado. As it shrinks, it swings around what is now the storm's main tornado. That one is getting much, much larger. What eventually forms is the most powerful tornado in history. Tornadoes like this are so massive that people sometimes fail to recognize what they are until it's too late to escape. Near Gossel, this tremendous tornado catches an elderly woman, probably in the open, and kills her. The dissipation of the monster over Marion Reservoir comes a few short minutes too late to save her life. And when the terror begins again near Lincolnville, the family of Ray and Denise Bina have a grandstand seat.
It's going down, ain't it?
Let's go. Inside, downstairs.
Where's that at?
There it goes, inside, downstairs.
Ramey, it is south of us, and it's moving east, okay?
Yeah.
Where's that at, Dad?
It's really scaring me. Getting closer! Yeah, you're right, it is.
Where's that at, Dad?
I don't know. You can't tell. Mom, it's getting closer. Yes, it is, James. But go downstairs. It won't hit our house.
Better get in the house.
Ooh, look at the stuff below. Oh, my word.
Come on.
Get down the basement. Get back. Get down in the basement.
The storm that kept thousands in their basements, the storm that wouldn't die, finally did after more than 100 miles of tornado damage. The end comes in northeast Kansas, not far from Topeka. But not before we experience 2 hours of terror. And though none of us really likes to think about it, chances are fairly good that we'll have more terrifying experiences in a short time this year.
We'll look at the chances for that in a few minutes. But right now, let's go to the phones to answer some of your questions.
I believe we have a call from Justin first.
How does a tornado start?
Well, there is some mystery attached to that. They're not polite enough to really reveal themselves when they start. They tend to start up in the clouds some miles above the ground, or at least that's the best information we have. Apparently starting up there with a rapid rotation and extending down toward the bottom of the storm. Now, the interesting thing is that this apparently starts as much as 20 to 25 minutes before the tornado comes out the bottom of the cloud and touches down to cause damage. So if we have the right kind of radar that can detect the start of the tornado up there, that means we can get quite a bit of lead time in warning people before the tornado touches down to cause trouble. That's one of the things the new government Doppler radars that will be deployed across the Midwest this decade are designed to do, and we can't wait to have them. They'll be real good.
There'll be 3 of them here in Kansas, and one of them will be put in Wichita. And next one we go to is Deborah.
Do we know what caused the Hesston tornado to be swallowed up by that other tornado, and how often does that happen?